Welcome to Lawyerpreneur, where we discuss creativity, entrepreneurship, and other trailblazing that enables us to distinguish ourselves from others, because being a lawyer doesn't have to mean doing business as usual. I am your host, Jeremy Richter. Today's episode is brought to you by Alps, who wishes you a happy spring. After a year that was anything but easy, Alps is committed to bringing ease to insurance. Alps is the nation's largest direct writer of lawyers' malpractice insurance. That means you have direct access to your insurance team, from account managers to claims attorneys. And Alps has the simplest, most straightforward online application out there. Qualifying firms can even apply, see rates, and bind coverage all in about 20 minutes. When it comes to continuing your coverage, Alps makes that easy too, with 100% online renewal. With Alps, you can spend less time insurancing and more time innovating. Get started at applyonline.alpsinsurance.com. That's applyonline.alpsinsurance.com. In addition to the corporate sponsorship that helps pay for the hosting and transcription of the show, you can support Lawyerpreneur on Patreon at patreon.com/lawyerpreneur. For less than the cost of a .1, you can help pay for the time it takes to create and edit Lawyerpreneur and receive copies of my two most recent books, Stop Putting Out Fires and Level Up Your Law Practice. Now, on to the show. My guest today is Angela Hahn, who is a life coach for lawyers. She helps her clients stop settling for less so they can feel amazing in every part of their lives. She is also the host of the podcast Fit to Practice. Angela, welcome to Lawyerpreneur.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. I have a whole bunch of things I want to ask you about, so I'm just going to jump right in.
Yes.
All right. A lot of lawyers get into law practice and after a few years realize that they want to do something other than practice law as a career. But there is so much money and time equity poured into, the career, and being a practicing lawyer has become a part of our identity along the way, that it's difficult to break away from it. And I understand you have some experience with that.
Yes, there's so many parts to it, but I want to start with what you said about identity. And identity is something that we build, right? I mean, when we are born as a baby crying out of our mother's womb, we don't know what our identity is. It's something that we create along the way. And so our identity is always up to us. And when we have the mindset of I put in so much time into it, you talked about sweat equity. And so I'm like, okay, does that mean that all of that goes down the toilet? But it doesn't have to. When I first started kind of my own ideas on starting my business, I didn't relate it to my law practice or my law degree either. I just decided to become certified in personal training because that's what I thought I wanted to do, because exercise helped me overcome some of the health issues that I had. And so I kind of just followed whatever felt like was the right thing for me. And then I realized that I could combine both of them together. When we are in the mindset that every single thing that we do, every decision that we make is working in our favor, at some point we'll make a way to create space for that. And so now I am leveraging my law degree to continue practicing as a lawyer while building a business for lawyers. And so none of that went to waste.
All right. So and this is something I've been thinking a lot about lately, is connecting the dots between our creativity and, some people think that maybe exclusively writing or, podcasting or whatever, but I don't think it has to be. I think it can be the things that you find fulfilling. And so if that's coaching other people, or physical fitness, emotional fitness, whatever that creativity is, and connecting that to the career path that we've chosen provides the opportunity to have a lot more fulfillment within what we're doing.
Yeah, it really doesn't have to be anything. You don't have to do anything, right? We have all of these conceptions, especially maybe like in law school. We go into law school with a certain kind of expectation of what our experience should be like, or what kind of job we need to come out with. And I think that is the hard part about being an entrepreneur, is that when you are charting your own path, nothing is certain. Yes, there might be freedom. And well, there is freedom, of course. And there's no employer kind of like breathing down your neck or whatever, or telling you what to do, but you have to be certain about the results that you are going to create. And there's literally no evidence that shows you or indicates that you are going to succeed. And it's very, very difficult kind of connecting, like your podcast name is Lawyerpreneur. Is it Lawpreneur or Lawyerpreneur?
Lawyerpreneur.
Lawyerpreneur. So you're a lawyer and an entrepreneur. Those two things don't go hand in hand.
Yeah.
But what if it did? What if it does? What if it's the fact that you're using both sides of your brain to help you become the person that you want to be by using every part of your brain, not just one of them, just because you've been using that one part of your brain for so long?
You talked about freedom just now. Did you always, so you're both a lawyer and an entrepreneur. Did you always feel the freedom to do both of those things? Or is that something you had to kind of develop within yourself and own it and say, okay, I can do this and I'm going to? Or how did that kind of evolve for you?
Yeah, I really had to make that decision myself because no one was going to validate it for me. Like when I first came out of law school, and I had to, like, I wasn't finding jobs because I had a very mediocre GPA. Like I was in the middle of a fellowship, which was not a permanent position. And I was supposed to be, like, people were like saying, like, aren't you supposed to be searching for a permanent job? And like, I was doing that. But at the same time, I still had time to do something else. And what I decided to do with that other time that I created was become a personal trainer. And so you can do whatever it is that you want to do. And you can create whatever time you want to create. And there's so much scarcity mindset on, there's only 24 hours. But in reality, there's so many hours that we're wasting on things that we don't need to waste on. There's so many hours that we can buy from other people at a much lower rate than you charge other people. And there are so many other energy drains that we're not aware of. And all those things we're refusing to do because we're afraid to see the truth. But if we take a few minutes to really look at what's going on, then we actually are empowered to make the necessary changes to make time for the things that we want to do.
All right. So another part of this thing that we're talking about is that now I graduated in a similar situation, mediocre GPA. It was 2012. So the recession was still problematic, and sent out, like dozens and dozens of cover letters while my wife continued to go to work, and I'm sitting at home every day now. Mm. So that was a lot of fun. So I can identify with that. But, like I've got a pretty good job now. There's a lot of people who are practicing. So to have this ambition to do something else or make a big change feels like greedy. It feels like we're wanting too much. And we can talk ourselves down from these ambitions and into trying to just be content with what we have. So I know this is something you've written about. Tell me why that isn't greedy and why we shouldn't settle.
Yeah, absolutely. That's literally what I wrote about today.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's crazy. So I was talking today in my post about how there was one time that my husband gave me, like, surprised me with a bunch of flowers. And the thing is, like, I don't like flowers. And so, like, I had to make a decision. Am I going to tell him I don't like flowers, or should I not tell him? But the reality is, like, people think that you can only be grateful or you can only be disappointed. You can be both. You can be grateful and also want something different, or you can want more too, while you're being grateful. And that's the beauty of working towards something. You can be a work in progress and a masterpiece at the same time. So many people are stuck right now because they feel like they should be grateful, but they can't. And they feel like because they're not grateful enough that they're doing something wrong. But again, going back to stop thinking that everything is so scarce. You can have more things. You can have different things. And as soon as you believe that, then you will start seeing the things that you need to see to create whatever it is that you want in life. And I know that sounds a little bit woo-woo, But we have that choice again, right? We have the choice to believe that or doubt that. And when you talk about greed, this is something that comes up a lot with money. Like people think that, oh, money, like I don't want much. Like I'm making good money. Like I don't have to blah, blah, blah. And it's because of the subconscious belief that money is evil. But what if it's not? Money actually only just makes you more of who you are. So if you're a douchebag and you yell at service attendants or waitresses or waiters at the restaurant, then the more money you have, the more power you think you have, and the more you're going to yell at those people. But if you're the kind of person who really appreciates people and really understands where they're coming from and has empathy, the more money you have, the more you're going to tip, the more you're going to give to other people. And then the more you're going to bring back to yourself and receive for yourself. And so when we understand that money only makes you more of who you are, then the focus is back on ourselves. Okay, how can I be a better person? So that no matter how much money I have, it's only benefiting me and everybody around me. And so when that is the mindset, there's absolutely nothing to be afraid of. You can desire whatever you need to desire or you want to desire. Just work on yourself.
Did you tell him about the flowers?
Yes, I told him. I really appreciate the flowers, but I would rather like watch a Disney movie or something. And now we watch like Ratatouille 10 times. You just have to pick a different movie. But it's like, you have to decide that you want it so that you can ask for it. And then when you ask for it, you get it.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe his feelings probably were hurt. But that also helps you like teach yourself, okay, how can I say things in a better way that is not hurtful?
I totally agree. Also, Ratatouille is definitely an underrated movie. My wife and I happened to be in San Francisco when that came out back in like 2007. We went and saw it. We've seen it many times, and now our 6-year-old likes it too. So I'm on board with the Ratatouille choice.
Yes, one of the best.
All right. You shared a few weeks ago in a social media post some of the limiting beliefs that you've experienced when looking into making big changes, career changes. One of those was that others are more disciplined or more talented than you. I can really identify with that. But what did that look like for you, and how did it affect your pursuits?
Oh, yeah, 100%. That was a thing that brought me down the most, because when I started this whole journey of being a lawyer and entrepreneur, I didn't even feel like I was a proper lawyer yet. And I was like, okay, I don't even know how to be a proper lawyer. And then now I'm trying to be an entrepreneur. Now I'm trying to be a coach. Like, how dumb is that? How presumptuous am I to want to do all these different things? But no one is coming to give you permission. You have to give permission to yourself, right? And so, yeah, I'm making like less than like 98% of the market as a fellow or whatever. But is that going to stop me from doing what I want to do? Like, if that is like, what does it actually look like to get permission to do what I want to do? And I cannot say it. Like, is it going to be a 20% raise? Is it going to be a certain number on my paycheck that's going to give me permission to be an entrepreneur? Like, what is the line? Where is the standard? And I couldn't define it. And because I couldn't define it, I was like, okay, I don't need to wait for anything. And so then I have to be the one. I have to be my own cheerleader. I have to be the one telling myself, yes, you can do it, even if you don't feel like it.
All right. So that sounds like a lot of introspection and self-assessment. Did you have somebody that you went to for coaching that helped you through it? Or was this something like you're just figuring out on the fly as you go?
Oh yeah, that it was a struggle, because a lot of, like a lot of people, I didn't seek out coaching because I thought I could do it myself. I was like, oh, who needs coaching? Like, I went through law school. Like, I've had like, this coaching stuff is dumb. And So I was just like reading things and taking courses and going to webinars or whatever it was that I thought that I needed to do. But my biggest mistake was it was not information that I needed, it was insight. And information is something that you can read up on somewhere, but insight is something that's customized to you based on their personal experiences. It's where you learn from somebody else's mistakes. And so I decided at a certain point, maybe like a year and a half into trying to figure things out myself, I finally hired a coach, like my dream coach. His name is David Meltzer. And it was the biggest investment I made. And I was like, okay, am I going to make my money back? I was so doubtful. I was so scared, but I did it because despite all the logical stuff, you shouldn't do it because of this, you shouldn't do it because of that. Again, I was practicing my certainty and my belief in myself that I deserve more. And in order to get there, I need to learn from somebody who has made 20 years worth of mistakes, because we make mistakes every day, to teach me how I can navigate my own mistakes. And so after I hired him, I was scared. I actually I'm going to write about this tomorrow. But he for the first couple of months, I was like, oh my gosh, I invested this much money. I'm seeing no results. This is really disappointing. And then on the third month, my revenue doubled. And then on the fourth month, it tripled. And now it's a 10x or whatever. And then it keeps growing. And so many people want to see certainty right away, right now in front of them. But that will happen when you're already certain in your brain. And if you don't, and that's the mistake that so many people make. They just give up after the first couple of months, and then they never get the certainty that they want because they don't have it in their mind already to begin with.
All right. So I'm really glad that you expressed what your thoughts about coaching were before you engaged in it, because that's one of the things I wanted to ask you about. Is there were I don't know percentages, but there's a whole bunch of lawyers, and I would say it's probably more than not, who would think the same thing about coaching. I have all of this training and education. Why do I need a coach? And so you are a coach for lawyers. Is that something that you find is an obstacle for, potential clients or, people who might be interested or on the fence? So is that mindset something you run into a lot?
Definitely. Actually, somebody told me who's also a coach, and they approached an agency who does marketing, I think on LinkedIn or something. And then they told me that the agency told them, oh, you're a coach for lawyers? Sorry, we can't take you as a client because lawyers are the hardest to sell to.
Yeah.
And I laughed. If that is the approach that you take, of course it's going to be hard. But if your approach is, oh, they're actually human and they have problems and issues just like everybody else, they have ambitions just like everybody else. And when you go in with that mindset of oh, it's actually easier, it's actually easy, period, then you find all these ways to make it easy. And so I was able to over a course of a year, I was able to get I think 60, 70 clients after a whole year of not working at all. Me on social media, I was getting no traction whatsoever. And then I just realized what I need to do is first listen to what they're saying. Stop trying to indoctrinate other people with your ideas or how great you are. Listen to what they're saying, what they need, what they want. And so the insights that work, the content that I put out there that works is not the most groundbreaking or transformational information. There is no such thing because the information is in the eye of the beholder, how useful it is. So the content that works the best are the ones where you combine your audience's voice and your voice and then make it resonating, relatable, and also real. And so when you do that, when you approach this pursuit understanding that the people that you're talking to are human beings. And when you speak their language, there's nothing that you can't do to get them as clients.
I think that is I'm totally on board with it and think it's true. One of the best marketing books that I have ever read is called Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller.
Yeah.
And he talks a lot about this, about, the way to get clients and gain their trust is by communicating to them that you understand their problem, that you can identify their problem for them when sometimes they can't even identify it for themselves. And you have the knowledge and the ability to solve that for them. And I think that fits really well with what you're saying.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I'm a big fan of Donald Miller. I watched like all of his like email videos.
Yes.
He's very insightful. I haven't enrolled in his what's it called? Like business, like school.
Yeah. The Business Made Simple. Is that the new one?
Academy or whatever it is,
yeah.
Because it's a bit too expensive. And like not that many courses yet. but other than that, like I really I've enjoyed some of his episodes on his podcast, and the books are very, very good.
Yeah. All right. So in spite of the limiting beliefs that you were experiencing and the self-doubt, you started your own business anyway. Why was it important for you to do that?
I think at the end of the day, I felt like I didn't have a choice. I think we are moved to take massive action when we feel like there is no other choice. And to me, I felt like I didn't have a choice because I didn't want to be in this perpetual state of trying to prove myself to people that didn't care about me. I wanted to be the truest version of myself and find the people who aligned with that and believed in that. And I knew that that was possible somewhere, even though I had like no business knowledge, no experience doing anything whatsoever. That was a desire that I had. That was a possibility that I felt certain about, even though I had no idea how to get there. And so when I felt like that was the reality that was waiting on the other side for me, I had to do it. I had to do it. And when I get to the other side, I also knew along came with it freedom in terms of time, money, resources, energy. And so I was like, if that is what's going to be given to me, I have to do everything that I can to get there.
All right. So now that you have been operating your own business and you are coaching, is it fulfilling for you in a way that you thought it would be when you were getting into it?
Oh yeah. Absolutely. Because I think the more I get into it, the more, because I think in the beginning was the hardest. During the first year, I didn't have any assistants. I didn't have a coach. I'm the only person in like my immediate family who does business in the way that I am right now online. And I'm also the first lawyer in the family. So I was really kind of like the one doing like the first of everything.
Yeah.
And so I had to create my own journey. I had to create my own path. And
you didn't have anybody to model it after.
Exactly. And so it was really, really hard because I really felt dumb the entire time. I just felt really stupid because I was doing things that was not proven. And when you do things that are not proven, people really look at you sideways. Like, what the hell are you doing? Going to the gym for personal training after your 9 to 5? What are you doing? Like, you should be like at home, like watching TV or something, or spending time with family or whatever. Like, what's wrong with you? Like, of course, people would say that or think that or somehow communicate that to me. So again, it was hard. I mean, no matter how zen you are, it's going to be hard because we are social beings and we operate on other people's feedback, no matter how much we try to be stoic and everything. And so it took a lot of work. It took a lot of work to make it easy. That's that.
All right. Let's change directions a little bit. I want to talk about your podcast.
Yeah.
You started your podcast Fit to Practice more than 2 years ago. What drew you to podcasting?
Oh my gosh, I cannot believe it's been 2 years. Wow. Because it's in 2019 that I started. So 2019 was when I was still struggling in my business. I had like one client and I was like, okay, what I need to do something. I need to do something. Maybe I can do ads, maybe I can do publicity. And I decided, okay, I saw an ad on publicity. And so I was like, okay, why don't I like reach out to a publicist or something, like talk to a bunch of publicists maybe. And then I found one. His name is Mark McDonald, and I'll tell you why I share his name. He was actually the first person I found. I like talked to like 5 other publicists, and then I just felt like Mark was just a very genuine, nice guy, and he cared about my work, even though I didn't have anything to stand on at the time. And he told me, I told him, okay, Mark, make me famous. It's for my business. And he said, well, hold on a second. You can't be on the cover of the New York Times tomorrow. You have to take steps. And I'm like, okay, well, what steps? Like maybe a local magazine, whatever. I don't know. And he said, I think that you should start a podcast. And I said, hell to the no, because no one's going to listen to me. I have one client. I'm just this baby lawyer. Nobody cares. He said, well, you still have a message. It doesn't really matter who you are. You should just still do it. And I said, no, maybe like 10 more times. And then finally I said, yes, okay, fine, I'll do it. And so I did it. I just recruited a bunch of people who just wanted to share their story on being a lawyer and what it meant to be fit to practice. And after about 6 months, I actually almost gave up, because I was right. No one was listening to it. Nobody cared about it. And I was like, okay, January-ish of 2020, I'm about to go on maternity leave. So why don't I just record a bunch of episodes, and then it'll last me through maternity leave. And then when I come back, I'll just wrap up and finish the podcast and cancel the show. Of course, with like the day after my child was born, the CDC gave mandates to wear masks. And so the pandemic and my baby were born at the same time. Wow. And at the same time, everybody started listening to my podcast, talking about it, sharing it, and all of that stuff. And all of a sudden it took off. And then all of a sudden people started listening to me when I was at my weakest, physically speaking, right after childbirth. So that really empowered me to believe, oh, okay. I don't have to be anything or do anything for my ideas to be impactful. And I also understood there's always a breakdown before the breakthrough. And when I saw that with my own eyes, okay, my certainty is finally playing out here. Suddenly, my business was growing, and then I finally hired a coach at the time. And that's how it happened. That's how the podcast was born. And now, like before, people were like, oh, can I change the time? Oh, I don't want to do the podcast anymore. But now I'm like booked until the end of the year, and everybody wants to be on my podcast. And so like I have to like start filtering everybody. But that's kind of how the cookie crumbled.
All right. Well, I'm really impressed that you went 6 months before thinking about abandoning it, because I think the statistic is that most podcasts go 7 episodes before they get abandoned. So like you were way further down than most people when you decided when you thought about giving it up before continuing. So that alone is impressive.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
All right. How has the podcast, or I guess maybe has the podcast had any direct effect that you can tell that's quantifiable on the business?
Yeah, I think that for some reason, I mean, I don't know much about this because I don't like my podcast editor, Mark McDonald, who, stuck with me all those years. He's the one who takes care of everything and knows everything about podcasting. Literally all I do is show up to the interview, and my VAs and my editor takes care of everything else. So I don't know how podcasts even really work, or what they're supposed to do in terms of growing your business. The only reason I do it is to serve the people who are listening to it. And when that was my approach, people started giving me credibility. For some reason, what I've learned is that when you have a podcast, you have more credibility in what you do, which I guess makes sense. After interviewing like over 100 lawyers now,
Yeah.
I now have such a good understanding of not just how to carry a conversation, but how people think, how people talk, how people operate, how people act, all of that stuff. And so that definitely has helped me indirectly on becoming a better coach. It has helped other people find me through my podcast. People have told me they found me through my podcast, and so they want to hire me. So I guess those are the direct effects, but I don't quantify it necessarily.
Do you have other forms of creating content that help draw people and find you, or is it mostly just a podcast?
My primary source of content is LinkedIn.
And what do you do on LinkedIn?
On LinkedIn, I post every weekday, and my podcast post is on Tuesdays, and then my DMs, my inbox is a jungle. I talk to a lot of people there, and I connect with a lot of people that I resonate with, and it just kind of builds from there. And I just engage with all the people that I speak with and interact with online.
And on LinkedIn, as far as the things you post there, do you do it like a direct solicitation of your business, or is it more sharing ideas, sharing your experiences, and by doing that, cultivating relationships and followers and people who are interested in what you're doing?
Yeah, it's both. I solicit people to take action, like call to action, in terms of messaging me or reaching out to me on my posts, but I never, ever solicit on DMs, because we all know those all go in the spam.
Yeah. Yeah.
And because those are the ones that I, throw into the spam. So it's the spam folder. So I also, one of the things that have been really helpful for me is I observe myself as a customer. What are the things that are a turn on for me? What are the things that are a turn off for me when I'm making a decision to buy? And so all the things that are a turn off, I try to avoid. And by the same time, like some of the things that are a turn off have worked in the past and have help other people take action. And so that thing is the call to action of the post. And that thing is talking about podcast. And now more people know about my podcast. Now people know more about me as a life coach, and they take action on those call to actions. And so I know that, because that is directly serving the audience that I'm trying to serve, yeah, I'm going to do it even if it feels uncomfortable.
All right. This question's going to be pretty open-ended here. What advice would you give to lawyers who are considering some creative pursuit as a part of their personal branding or marketing?
I guess just do it. I think the thing that trips up so many people is expectations. Okay, I wanna do like this very neat little book project. And they don't do it because they think that they're going to fail or they're going to receive some sort of negative judgment or feedback. But if your creativity hinges on other people's feedback, then that's not creativity. And so that's why all these like gurus say, like, you got to really think about what you enjoy. And so if you're writing a book because you genuinely want to write a book, if you are trying to write a children's book or paint a canvas or whatever it is, or write fan fiction, because that, like, you don't know if the time's passing while you're engaging in that activity, then do it. And then when you do that, as you are taking action on the things that light you up, then there's so much inspiration that comes to you on how you can use your zone of genius to help other people. But that's only if you are taking an inspired action that way. If you're sitting around thinking, is this going to work? Are people going to like it? Then nothing's going to happen. But let me acknowledge the fact that both situations happen to everybody.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
And at the beginning of it, if you're putting things out into the world, people are not going to read it. They're not going to listen to it at first. And so that's why it's so important to be something that you enjoy, regardless of the external validation. Because, you know, like for my blog, when I started it back in 2016, almost nobody read it for 9 months until it like caught on. For your podcast, for the first 6 months, people weren't listening. And then it caught. And so if you hadn't been enjoying it and I hadn't been enjoying the writing, we would have just like thrown it in. But there was that internal validation that mattered so much more, even though the other, I'm not going to say it doesn't matter. It matters. But yeah, it's so important that you enjoy those pursuits. And if other people enjoy it as well, then that's great. So yeah, I'm on board with you there.
Yeah. Now there are times when you just don't feel creative, but you want to get to a particular outcome. Like with my podcast, for example, I knew that the podcast was going to help me grow my business. But the podcast itself, I didn't really want to have much to do with it in the beginning. And so that's when you need somebody. That's when it's not, you don't need anything, but that's when it's helpful to have somebody to hold that space for you, to hold that belief and the certainty for you. And that's also the value of hiring, because they not only help you save time, but they also help you save energy that you feel like you should use into something that you don't believe in. Because if it's their expertise to use their energy for something because they have that belief based on their own experiences, then by all means, that is worth every cent. And that's what happened to me.
Yeah. So you didn't have to flounder around trying a whole bunch of different things, but not being able to give it the time or energy that would give it the opportunity to succeed. You had somebody else's belief in you and in this particular avenue to say, trust me, this is going to work, lean into it.
Exactly.
All right. I really appreciate your time today. Before we go, tell people where they can find you and follow your work.
Yeah. My website is angela-han.com, and I'm very active on LinkedIn. Please find me there, and I would love to chat with you.
Thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Of course, Jeremy.
Thanks for listening, and I hope you've enjoyed today's show. Please take time to rate and subscribe at whatever podcatcher you're listening on. And if you want more from me, you can find me at jeremywrichter.com. You can also find me on Twitter at RichterJW. And if you want the extra audio and benefits available at Patreon, you can become a patron at patreon.com/lawyerpreneur. Thanks for listening.